So according to the slide, there will be 3 parts. The first part is the syllabus, obviously. And the second part about the reading material, which will be very short, because just the list of reference in a way. And the third part is similar to what Dr. Ma has presented on water, is a number of sample MCs. Well, although I want to make my introduction short, but looking at the syllabus, you can see that there are 18 sections. But don't worry, I will run through it very quickly. But before I start, first of all, what is waste? And when you talk about air, you know what is air. Noise, you know that. Water, you know that. Actually, what is waste? And I want to make it clear. Waste, well, actually, we should call it solid waste. It means there is some solid there. But the tricky thing is that even there's a lot of water, like sludge. And for those who have worked with sludge, know that typically sludge have a very high water content. But in Hong Kong context or in many parts of the world, we regard sludge as solid waste. So in a way, anything that is not water, not wastewater, that will be under the topic of waste, solid waste. And that is the reason why we have 18 sections, because there are so many different types of waste. The first section is actually an introductory section. Well, we know that waste, solid waste, means a lot of things. So this section just gives you the guiding principle, how to classify different types of solid waste. And about the classification, the important thing is that you know about the classification used in Hong Kong. Some places may have slightly different classifications. But well, we are working in Hong Kong, we are Hong Kong based, so we should use the classification system in Hong Kong. And every day, well, in the past 10 years or so, probably you heard a lot about the Hong Kong language is going to be fully sort of overflow. There's a lot of municipal solid waste, and you need to know what actually means municipal solid waste. Well, for Hong Kong's waste classification, basically there are 3 major types of waste. The first or the largest group is what we call municipal solid waste. They are the waste from the households. The waste from the commercial activities. And the second group is construction waste. They are the waste from the construction site, the excavated material, the broken stones, broken concrete, all that from the construction site and cement plant, they are construction waste. The third major group is special waste. That means they are waste that require special handling. And in the following sections, each of the 3 major groups of waste will go through in a bit more detail. The second section is about the analyze property of waste. You want to manage something, you have to know its property. And well, we know that we take away our rubbish bin, look at our rubbish, we know that it's a lot of different things there. So waste is really heterogeneous. But still, there are some properties. There are some important properties we need to analyze, we need to know about before we know how to treat them or manage them. And that's the purpose for the second session. And the third session is about some principles, concepts on waste management. And imagine, well, we have our rubbish, we throw our garbage or rubbish into the bin, and what happened after that? There are many steps followed. Somebody has to collect the waste and transport it to somewhere, and then it will be either get treated or we transported to elsewhere or taken to the recycling plant. There's a lot of operations over there. So in this section, this introduces the idea of functional element of waste management. We divided the whole waste management operation into different elements. We call functional elements. And then we have to know the property or the basic operation involved in each element, because the change in one element will affect the other element. For example, if we want to recycle more, and then what we have to do probably is to change the element of collection. In the past, we put everything into one single bin. And if we want to recycle more, we change the first element. We provide separate collection, the metals into one bin, the plastic into another. And that will enhance recycling. That will facilitate recycling. So the change in one element, the operation will affect the others. That's why we have to look at the whole functional elements, how one affects another. And this section, the third section, is about principles and concepts. And from here, the concept of this waste hierarchy, waste management hierarchy will be introduced. And that is a very fundamental concept, and which I believe you probably see it on the newspaper, well, see it on the TV many times ago. It is a way like an inverted pyramid. The priority is on waste prevention. If we prevent the production of waste, then, well, that saves us a lot of effort to collect them, to treat them, or to dispose them. And then the next is reuse, and then recycling, treatment, and the last or the least preferred action is disposal to landfill. And that's the basic concept, and that's very important for waste management. There are also other concepts introduced in this section, like the life cycle analysis, the use of economic tools. The municipal solid waste charging is supposed to be implemented, well, in 2 years' time. That's an economic tool to reduce waste, to promote waste recycling. So this sort of concept or approach is introduced here. And of course, there are legislations. Legislation is in fact one tool of sort of requiring us to comply to or follow certain requirements. From section 4 down to section, let's see. In fact, there are a lot of sections on municipal solid waste. So section 4, 5, 6, 7 shown here are all about municipal solid waste. One of the reasons is that municipal solid waste is the largest source of waste in Hong Kong at least. And not sure whether you know about how much municipal solid waste we dispose each day. It's around 10,000 tons each day. And we dispose about 4,000 tons of construction waste. And for special waste, we dispose about less than 1,000, something like 700 to 800 tons per day. So municipal solid waste is the biggest source of waste. And there are more sections devoted to about that. Section 4 is about the collection, the source separation of municipal solid waste, and about the collection system. And in Hong Kong, this part of operation is responsible by the FEHD, the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department. And it also talks about transportation, how the waste is transported either to the landfill or to the treatment plant or to the recycling plant. And it also introduced about the refuse transfer station. And yeah. Section 5 is another functional element. It's on waste recycling. This introduced about what's meant by recyclables. That means the material or the part of waste that could be recycled. And it introduced about the type of recycling process or technology. And particularly for Hong Kong, introduced about the measures that are used or that could be used to promote recycling. Following the waste hierarchy, after recycling is the treatment. And so this is the section 6. It's introduced about all different municipal solid waste treatment technologies. Basically, it's classified into major types. The first is mechanical treatment. That means use physical means to separate the waste according to the size or according to the density or color into different material. The second treatment technology that it introduced is about the thermal technology, which the most common thermal technology is incineration. And Hong Kong is planning to build an incinerator. And in fact, Hong Kong has incinerators before, but they all closed down in the 1990s. Now we are planning to build a major one, and that is thermal treatment of waste. And the third major group of technology for waste treatment, for municipal solid waste treatment, is biological treatment. That is composting or anaerobic digestion. And you suppose you should know about these terms, and what is meant by anaerobic digestion, what is meant by composting. You should have a basic knowledge about that. Although we are not supposed to know how to actually design a composting plant or that, but you should know about the meaning of that. Lastly, section 7 is on waste disposal, the bottom part of the waste management hierarchy. And well, Hong Kong has 3 major landfills. And landfill is the major municipal solid waste disposal method in Hong Kong at the moment. Then there is nearly no other waste treatment plants. So Hong Kong at the moment rely more or less solely on landfills. And you should know about what happens in a landfill. What are the environmental concerns? What is roughly the operations of a landfill and the considerations in the design and operation. And this part of section talk about that, and you should get some basic knowledge about that. And then section 8 is food waste. Actually, food waste is classified as a kind of municipal solid waste in Hong Kong. This food waste is particularly well taken out to become a section because for municipal solid waste, food waste is the largest constituent, at least for Hong Kong. Around 1/3 of the municipal solid waste in Hong Kong is actually food waste. And in the case of Hong Kong, the government is putting a lot of effort trying to address or tackle the problem of food waste, try to collect them and treat them. There's a lot of initiative. You may see some of it on the television, the Food Wise campaign, which is targeted at food waste. So in this section, you should know about the characteristics of food waste, the sources and the possible method of treatment for food waste. Section 9 is on construction waste, which I mentioned. Hong Kong at the moment disposes about 4,000 tons per day of construction waste, because we have a lot of construction projects, construction sites. And that is fairly unique in the case of Hong Kong. And you should know about what are the sources of the construction waste, the way of management and treatment. And you should know that in Hong Kong there is a construction waste charging scheme. That means if you take the construction waste for disposal, you will be charged. And the rate of charge will depend on where are you going to dispose them. If you dispose the waste to landfill, it will be of the highest charge. And to the barging pond taken to be reused, the charge will be lower. And that is the tool to encourage reuse or recycling of construction waste. And from section 10 onward, there are several special waste that is highlighted in the syllabus. The first one, section 10, is about hazardous waste. And you should know about what is meant by hazardous waste. How would we know what are the characteristics of hazardous waste? Why we call them hazardous? And in terms of Hong Kong, Hong Kong has a law controlling hazardous waste, but in the law they term it not hazardous. They use the term chemical waste. Under the waste disposal ordinance, there is a chemical waste regulation. And that chemical waste actually refers to the hazardous chemical waste. The waste is hazardous because of its property, because it is toxic, flammable, or carcinogenic, or there are other sort of properties, and you have to know about that. And for hazardous waste, because of this nature, there are special requirements for the storage, transportation, and treatment. And you need to know about what are the special requirements for that. In the case of Hong Kong, in the past, 50 years ago, there's still a lot of industry in Hong Kong. There's a lot of chemical waste. And that's Hong Kong, because of that, Hong Kong built a chemical waste treatment plant in Changi Island. And then they treat chemical waste. And that you can make reference from the EPD website and get some information about that. Section 11 about clinical waste. And there's also are special waste, it needs special treatment. But why chemical waste is special? The major reason is that it could carry infectious agent, bacteria, pathogen, virus, and that. So it needs special handling and treatment. In some cases, chemical waste is classified as hazardous waste. In Hong Kong, under the Waste Disposal Ordinance, we have a particular chemical waste regulation. And so we use the term chemical waste. And you need to know about what are the requirements to handle them and the method of treatment, the common or normal method of treatment. Section 12 is about sludge, well, which Professor Ho and Dr. Ma, when they talk about water, they have mentioned about sludge. Yes, a lot of sludge in Hong Kong actually are generated from the wastewater treatment plants. And you need to have a knowledge about the characteristic, why they are special. And one of the major characteristics is that they are of very high water content. Raw sewage sludge will be over 90% moisture content. So the handling and treatment will be different from other ways. So you need to know about the characters, the transportation, and the treatment. And some of you might know or might have even visited. Well, in Hong Kong, we have just commissioned or built a sludge incinerator, what we call T-Park. And so you should have some interest in knowing what sort of technology could be used for sludge treatment. Section 13 is livestock waste, another special waste. Well, I think you see this term not too much in the recent years. But 20 years ago, you see a lot of these terms on the newspaper, on the TV. Previously, the rivers or the small streams in Hong Kong are all very polluted. And the major source of pollution is the livestock waste. Hong Kong have a lot of pig farms and chicken farms. And this farm waste from the chickens and pigs, they just flush into the streams, into the river, causing water pollution. And then there's a need to control the livestock waste. But for the livestock waste, the characteristic is, unlike the municipal solid waste, they are more like sludge. Because they are manure, and they could be watery, and they will be sort of very odorous. And so there's some sort of light sludge special requirement for treatment or collection. The 14th section is about the dredge, mud, and sediment. And this actually refers to those mud or sediment dredged from the sea or from the river. And again, they are of specific characteristic, like sludge. They are very watery, and some of these sludge are highly contaminated. For example, if you dredge the mud from the Chun Wan or Kowloon Bay area, which have been industrial area in the past, probably they are contaminated. So there are different classifications. Whether the mud is contaminated or not, there are different handling requirements and technology and methods. And you need to know about that. And in the case of Hong Kong, there are classification systems basing on the chemistry as well as the biological characteristics. And that is included in the syllabus. And in case of Hong Kong, the major disposal sites for dredged mud is marine disposal. For contaminated there is a special confined disposal site, and then what are the criteria of consideration in that, and you need to know about that as well. The last special waste is radioactive waste in section 15. And some of you may think that, well, how come Hong Kong has a sort of radioactive waste? Hong Kong has low nuclear energy, and so, but still, Hong Kong do produce a little bit, not much, radioactive waste that needs careful handling. And they are from the hospitals, for medical use, they are from the research institutes, from the tertiary institutions. And so you need to have a knowledge about what are the source, the handling requirement, and the treatment or management options that could be used. And the focus is more on the low-level radioactive waste. Because Hong Kong has no nuclear power generation, there's no high-level radioactive waste in Hong Kong. Well, the 16th section is about contaminated mud. Actually, what's meant by contaminated mud? That is soil contaminated by hazardous waste or chemicals. But it's a bit more than soil itself, because it's about land, and well, below the soil there could be groundwater. So contaminated land could also cover the problem of groundwater pollution. And for contaminated lands, in most of the cases, the cause are sort of anthropogenic, that means human cause, caused by the previous industrial or chemical activities. And so Hong Kong do have some sort of these activities, like repair workshops, like the shipyards and all that. And in the past, if they do not handle the waste carefully, it could cause contamination. So the sort of contamination we call hazardous. So the people who might come to the land and come into contact with the soil and groundwater. And you have to have a knowledge about the sort of hazardous caused by contaminated land, and what are the methods and approach that could be used to assess their level of contamination. What are the possible means that could be used to decontaminate the land or to reduce the contamination. So this will be the section 17 and 18 with the last bit. They are not sort of related to specific waste or type of waste. They are issues that closely linked to waste management. Section 17 is about the siting. Actually, it's about the siting of waste management facility. And this section exists because waste management facility are commonly regarded as unwelcome facility. And somebody may heard about the NIMBY syndrome, not in my backyard. Okay, yes, we need this. We need incinerators. We need waste treatment plant. We need food waste treatment plant, but not in my district. Others elsewhere, because it will affect us. And so there's a sort of a NIMBY syndrome. And then so this section introduces the reason of that and how those sort of problems arise and what are the possible options that could be addressed this concern. Section 18 is the last section. It's about safety, occupational health and safety. Waste management trade is a trade of the highest safety and health injury in general in Hong Kong and also in elsewhere. Usually waste management workers, the rate of health injury is the highest. And this section introduces about this, discuss about what are the possible reasons for that, and what are the means that could be used. There are sort of measures and systems that could be employed to address this safety issue. And there are laws, and you should have a knowledge about what sort of laws relevant to safety and health, and particularly for waste management activities. So I have finished the syllabus, hopefully. And that is the reference material. That's very simple, basic. Textbooks, the first three is textbook things. Yeah. And specific for Hong Kong, it will be the publications from EPD, and which have the largest amount of volume of material. EPD publishes a report every year on the solid waste monitoring, the amount of solid waste arising. And then that report, I think you should read that. There's a lot of material there. And you could go to the EPD website, go to the waste section. There's a lot of reference material and the knowledge, the sort of technology used. Well, they have a lot of material there. And from that, they also contain a list of circulars or technical reference. And then those will be good source for you to understand the issue, like contaminated land, and what are the measures that could be used to tackle contaminated land and all that. They are there in the website. And of course, lastly is the study guide. The study guide, well, I think we have promulgated earlier that, or today, that there will be a study guide that gives you a sort of overview and what material would be covered in the syllabus.